Hello and welcome back to the Cambrian Virtual Show, the show that we're going to be running between the 22nd and the 29th of May. Over this period, we're going to be on average giving 3 speakers a day, so we're very looking forward to doing that for you. You can see the previous speakers that we've had on our website and also see the upcoming live speakers that we've got coming up. So that is www.cambrianphoto.co.uk, and you can follow the link through to the Photo and Optics show, onto the speakers, and see all the previous events and all the ones upcoming as well. You can follow the website, or you can click the link in the description. We're also happy to announce that all the speakers that we're doing are absolutely free. So we are, oh, sorry, lost my notes. We're very happy to say that all the speakers are free. Because of this, we are asking for donations. So all the donations are going to chosen charities and also local food banks as well. Once again, the link is on our website and also available in the link below as well. So thank you very much for joining us. I can see we're having some very nice good mornings from everyone. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, Sean. Yes, today, very happy to announce we have David with us. So let's give us a big warm welcome to David. Morning, David. How are you?
Morning. I believe I've frozen again.
Right. Okay.
So I don't quite know what's happening here, but I shall just try and reconnect in.
That's fine. We'll see you shortly. We can always tell when we're going live when things like this happen. David will be back with us again shortly. Coming up later on, we do have a talk from Paul Sanders coming up sort of later on, which will be very exciting. I believe David's back with us now, so let's just bring David back in. And I think we're, oh, yeah, there we go. Hi, David. How are you doing?
No, I believe I've frozen again. So every time I turn on the live comments, I'm freezing. So I'm going to have to just disappear again and not turn on the live comments. So you will have to read out anything that's important.
Not a problem. And there we go.
Right.
Morning, David. How are you?
Good morning. After that small technical hitch, I'm fine.
Oh, brilliant. That's not a problem.
Now I've frozen again.
I think sorry about this, everyone. If you just wanted to see whether your screen is running, because your sound is coming through okay. So if so the screen is up and running there. So
yeah,
we can do a little bit that way. Obviously, I know your talk today is you wanted to show stuff on the webcam as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think the best thing to do, Paul, is if I take the screen off for the moment and just see if we run without the screen, and we'll turn it on when we need it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying before, just as David sort of sorting out the connection problems there, we do have Paul Sanders that will be coming in sort of later on, doing a talk on the sort of well-being of photography again. So I believe David's back with us now.
No, gone again.
No. Everyone that's watching live, thank you for bearing with us with these technical difficulties. It'd be a lovely time if I knew a good joke, but I don't. So if anyone's happy to put some comments in there and we can have a quick chat, that's absolutely fine. Let's see if David is up and running again.
Yeah, I'm up and running and live.
And live, there we go.
Okay, let's
sorry about that, David.
That's okay. I'm sure, I don't know which end it is, but it could be either of us.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. So, obviously, the lovely experiences of going live. So yeah, apart from the technical difficulties, are you okay today, David? It's good to see you.
Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, so today you're going to be talking a little bit about printing for us.
Yeah, I am indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's obviously two ways that people can figure out obviously these different types of papers and stuff like that. You can spend years and years and years in doing it yourself, or we can tune in to see David give us a demonstration for us. So
my years of greyness and loss of hair down to printing. Yeah.
So we're taking advantage of all the sort of testing that you've done over the years and things like that. So and obviously you've sort of perfected the system down, and very happy for you to share it with us today. So yeah, so I'll hand over to you, David, if that's okay.
Yep, no problem at all. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce a small seminar on what I believe is the importance of printing, and added to that, I'm going to take you through some of the steps that I use in my printing workflow. In my view, a photograph isn't a photograph until it's printed. Digital images reside on the web, and they're not real until they're a tactile thing in your hand. It's a bit like the days of when we used to have LP records and so on. That gatefold sleeve you had in your hands was something very, very tactile, and something that was of an age. It was of a period of time, and it felt very important to us. And the same with printing. Printing photographs are printed of an age, so they are relevant to the time that they are printed in. And because of that, we readily accept the deficiencies of the quality of the print because of the age of what we're looking at. If you took a digital print that you made, a digital image that you made perhaps 20 years ago, when digital cameras were first around, and then looked at it, our natural reaction now on our high resolution screens and everything is to say that that image isn't very good quality, and therefore you'll discard it and not actually do anything with it. Whereas if you'd printed it 20 years ago, you might still pick up that image and actually feel that it's got some merit, and it's still got a tactile feel to it. So I'm going to start by just showing a couple of quite old photographs in terms of when they were produced, and how still important that they are to us. And perhaps if these were printed in the digital age, i.e. you went to print them now, you might not actually print them because the quality of the pictures aren't that good. So we'll start with something that's 57 years old, and if I show it up to the camera, that's a young me. So you can see from that it's not a particularly good photograph. There's a lot wrong with it in terms of what we perceive as a modern image, in terms of its sharpness. The drop off is not very good, and it's generally quite soft. Even printed at this size, it's quite soft. But it's a photograph of an age, and it's still got merit and tactile importance to us now. There are other pictures. This one was taken in the late 70s by Tish Merthyr, a documentary photographer in Elswick near Newcastle. Again, a photograph that we might say isn't technically perfect, but yet it prints really, really nicely. It is a lovely thing to have, and it's a beautiful tactile thing to hold. And it's something very different to looking at a picture like this than looking at one actually just on a screen. Another one here from Mick Critchlow, taken in 1979. Just wait for the camera to refocus. But again, it's a tactile thing to hold it. If you looked at it on a screen, you might give it a cursory glance, but not much more. But once it's been printed, it's something to behold. So I'm very keen on the whole printing process, and I'm also very keen on printing your work as you go along, because to me it completes the cycle. You know, I go out there with my camera, I take a load of pictures, I come back, I process them, and then I've got the ability to print them at home and actually that same day have something that's tactile in my hand. So with regard to home printers, there are a couple of main manufacturers of home printers, Epson and Canon. Both have got advantages and disadvantages. Until recently, with the very newly launched Epson printers, the Epson printers had a significant disadvantage in that you had to change black ink cartridges for different types of print, between black and white and color, etc. But they had the advantage that you could feed roll paper through them. So if you wanted to print something very large, a panoramic, for instance, you could do it on the Epson printers. The Canon printers, you didn't have to change the inks side of it. And probably if you looked at the actual output result, something like the Canon Pro 1000 was marginally better than its Epson equivalent. What you do find with different printer manufacturers is as you go up the food chain, in terms of start from the entry-level printers through the mid-range ones to the more, in inverted commas, professional printers, you find that the paper handling side of the process gets better. And by that, I mean what happens is that the paper is held more precisely from the print head, giving you a much more even print. If you think back to cheap inkjet printers, one of the things you often had was paper jams or the head hitting the paper, resulting in large swathes of dark color on the paper itself. I myself have gone down and chosen the Canon printer route. You can see behind me under the light, over in the corner, there's a Canon Pro 1000 printer, which is the first of the red line Canon printers, so it falls into their professional family, and as such has better paper handling than the cheaper Pro systems. It is large, it is heavy. These are some of the disadvantages of home printing. You need a fair amount of real estate to put your printer on, and this is very noticeable with some of the lower end printers that only take the thicker paper on the rear feed as opposed to from the top, which means that the paper has to be fed in from behind the printer to come out the front, and because of that you need your paper size behind the printer to actually be able to achieve that. So one of the considerations with choosing a printer is how big do you actually want to print, and at what resolution do you want to print. Most home printers are A3-ish in size. When you get to the photo printers, there are a few ones that are limited to A4, and then things like my Canon Pro 1000 will actually print up to A2. From a personal point of view, I've found that having big monitors to edit on means that I really need to see big prints. If you hold up a very small print next to a large monitor, it pales into insignificance. However, if that print is away from the computers and you're looking at it in your living room or whatever with a group of friends, then again, it becomes back to what we had before with the small print, something very tactile and something very, very visible. So in terms of resolution, this is an example here. This is a picture of the suspension bridge in Chester. So that's printed on A3. So you can see that's A3 in size. The same print on A2. So again, it's the same brand of paper, but you can see that physically it's a much larger thing, and has potentially has much more impact. Now, a lot of people talk about resolution when you want to print, and the resolution of your camera. Very typically, you aim for 300 dpi when you're printing, which on a typical 24 megapixel camera these days would give you an A2 sized print, a 20-inch print. So this large print here is approximately 20 inches along the long edge. So has been printed at 300 dpi. However, if you were to crop the image, obviously you would potentially lose resolution. But one of the things that you need to bear in mind is that with large prints, is that like a large painting, you don't normally stand really close to them and look at them in exceptional detail. You know, it's a bit like Michelangelo and the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. That hasn't been painted for the benefit of you up on the top of the scaffolding, staring at it from 1 foot away. It's been painted to be viewed from the floor of the Sistine Chapel. And similarly with large photographs, they can be printed really, really large, but as long as you're standing a reasonable way away from them, they will still have enormous impact. It's only if you choose to walk up really close and pixel peep at the image will you start to see potentially small flaws in the image. So what I'm trying to say here is that most cameras, 16 to 24 megapixel cameras, are more than capable of producing exceptional quality A2 prints. You don't need a megapixel monster to actually produce really, really large prints, unless you're going to want to inspect those prints really, really closely and get your eyes really close to the paper. So you have, say, different print sizes, A3, A2, potentially A1 if you go for really large printers, but those are really for people who are commercially printing. The Epsons will take roll paper, so you could actually buy paper on a roll and feed it through the machine. Some of the really large Canons will take roll paper as well, which enables you to produce very large panoramics should you wish to. Also, in these days, it's quite often that people are shooting on film and scanning film, editing it perhaps in something like Lightroom, and then coming back and then printing it from Lightroom. So there's an example print that I've done here. So this is actually on a medium format film. It's been scanned on a Novatech scan machine by the developing house. I've then taken the scan and printed it, or taken it into Lightroom, adjusted it slightly, and then printed it. But the quality of the print is exceptional. It probably doesn't show on your tiny little feeds, but in terms of an A2 size print that's 20 inches across, it's an excellent print. And a print this size would scale up even larger if you wanted it to.
Hi, David. I think we've frozen again. Apologies.
Right. Okay. All right. So did you see the last print or not?
I think I saw it, but I don't think it
Okay,
might have gone out to the ether.
Okay, we'll just carry on. I'll just resync the feed.
Had a comment before about need to go on a BBC course for padding out a live stream. I definitely do. So I'll be going over there and seeing that. Let's bring David back in.
Okay, so just
thank you, David. Yeah, you're back with us.
No, it's frozen straight away.
You are back with us. There you go.
Oh, I'm back again. Right. Okay. I'm just going to get everybody else in the house to stay off the internet in a minute. But anyway, okay. So the other thing regarding printers is the choice of printer is the inks that the printers can use. The lower level printers use dye-based inks, and the sort of the mid to upper range printers tend to use pigmented inks or archival inks. Basically, the further again up the food chain you are, the longer the ink is likely to last on the paper before it starts to significantly fade. Most noticeable if you hold prints up they're in a position where they're in sunlight a lot of the time, then you will start to see fade on a print. The dye-based ones will fade faster than the pigmented ones or the archival ones. There's a running cost consideration with printers as well. Printing at home, however you look at it, it probably isn't cheap, but it does give you complete control of the process. The way I look at it is that typically for an A3 sized print, something along this sort of size, you're looking at a very roughly at about, what a appalling place to freeze.
Thank you everyone for bearing with us. We're having some lovely comments through, so people using some of the Canon printers, it's nice to see. So yeah, we're seeing some really sort of nice comments through. Obviously, David is struggling a little bit, so hopefully he'll be back on shortly. Okay, here we go. Okay, just bear with us, and we'll be back momentarily. Okay.
Yeah, I'm back again.
We're back for a little bit.
Happening here. I've just kicked everyone else on the house off the internet as well, so hopefully that might fix things.
Yes, so, everyone is bearing with us, David. So
good. Sorry about this, guys.
No, it's okay.
Penalties of COVID-19. Okay, so in terms of running costs, as I was saying, printing at home isn't cheap, but it does give you complete control over the process. The way I look at it is typically a print like this, probably A3 size, probably cost me between £2.50 and £3 to produce. A couple of quid for the paper, and I am using reasonably expensive papers, and between 50p and £1 in terms of ink costs. You can use third-party inks. There are some disadvantages with using third-party inks, not necessarily in their quality in terms of clogging in the inkjet and so on. Let's accept that they're all as good as one another, but in terms of their color quality and their color consistency. There are a couple of brands, Precision Color and a company in the UK called Octo Inkjet, who actually sell inks that very closely match the colors of the original Canon and Epson inks. However, they might not quite have the archival properties of those. The disadvantage with changing between ink sources is that if you want to have consistency through your prints, is that you will have to recalibrate your printer each time you change ink supplier, which is time consuming and uses more paper. There are different types of paper. Typically, we have glossy papers, we have matte papers, we have papers in between, oyster, silk, etc. We have papers that are off-white, so that they add perhaps a little bit of warmth to the picture. Okay,
back with us, David. Yeah,
we have papers that are off white. So I've got 3 examples here of the same print printed on different papers. You may not quite be able to see, but this particular paper here is a warmer paper, so it's slightly off white, whereas this paper here, if I show it next to it, you can probably see is a much crisper white paper. And you have the choice when you home print as to what paper stock you want to use for what types of pictures. If you're doing something in a city that's bright and got sharp lights on it, then you might want a fairly high contrast paper, which has got a white background, a wide color gamut, so it prints a large range of colors. But if you're doing a landscape picture, you might want to print an image on a slightly warmer piece of paper, just to make it look more natural and less stark. So there are a variety of paper sources available to you, but one of the most important things is that you need to calibrate your system. And you not only need to calibrate the printer, but you also need to calibrate your monitor. And there are a couple of main manufacturers of monitor calibration devices. Paul hopefully will put up the links for those in a minute. One manufacturer is X-Rite and the other is Datacolor. The Datacolor produced the Spider range of products, and X-Rite produce the X-Rite Studio, Display, etc. Now these allow you to gain some consistency from your monitor, so that your monitor changes how you view it, both over time and on the ambient lighting in your room. So typically these devices, I have my device here, which is the X-Rite i1 Studio. This allows me to calibrate the colors on my monitor, and then it sits plugged into my computer, so that if the ambient lighting changes in my room, it should automatically adjust the monitor to cope, so that I get consistency through my monitor. Now, to be able to do that, you need a certain type of monitor. Your monitor needs to be an IPS type panel, one that can be calibrated. Most monitors and laptop screens are, but the lower cost laptops and monitors are what's called a TN panel, and the TN panels don't allow you to alter the calibration. Now the monitors, you want to have a monitor that has what's called a wide color gamut, so that it can display a wide range of colors. And you will see that monitors are described as perhaps displaying 98% sRGB, 75% Adobe RGB, or 100% sRGB, etc. The higher sRGB value you can gain, and in turn the higher Adobe RGB value you can gain, the better the monitor will be in displaying all of your colors. All web-based imagery works in sRGB. Most of your cameras will have the option to output in sRGB or Adobe RGB, but your monitor will generally work in sRGB, and something like Lightroom tends to work in sRGB as well. So it is very important to calibrate your monitor, and then having calibrated your monitor, you need to calibrate your printer, and your printer needs to be calibrated for every printer paper type that you're going to use. Now, a printer paper calibration is called an ICC profile, and if you go to a paper manufacturer's website, somebody like PhotoSpeed, then you'll be able to download generic profiles for your printer and their paper types. So if you choose to print on PhotoSpeed Platinum Birita 300, you can go to the PhotoSpeed website and download the generic printer profile. To get the best quality print, you want to profile your printer, your inks, your paper. So having done that, you can find on the PhotoSpeed website, you could download a utility they've got that enables you to print out a standard set of test colors, which you can then send off to PhotoSpeed, and they will return to you a profile for your system to set yourself up. Additionally, my i1 Studio device enables me to profile my printer as well for whatever printer paper I choose to use. So it has the ability to print out colored test charts, which I can then scan with this device. It's got a scanner inside it as well, and then it will generate an ICC profile. It uses perhaps between 100 and 200 different colors to do that. If you send your profile off to PhotoSpeed, you'll notice that the PhotoSpeed one uses a lot more colors. So ultimately, may be a lot more accurate in producing a good quality print profile back. Okay, let me just move my notes. Okay, one thing that you'll also notice though is that your monitor has typically a wider color gamut than your printer. Your monitor also has punchier contrast than your printer. So images that may look very, very punchy on a monitor screen may look a little less punchy once they've been printed. But we'll come on to that in a moment and see how we can adjust to compensate a certain amount for that. I'm now going to go on a little bit about my printing workflow. I use Lightroom to edit my pictures. So I'm going to open up Lightroom in a minute, and hopefully sharing my screen won't cause the feed to lock up. And hopefully Paul now can share that screen for everybody. So we've moved into Lightroom here. I created a very small library collection of images that I want to use for today, rather than look at the whole thing. And the first image I've highlighted is the boats at Lindnanthal, which is a very common shot for anyone in Snowdonia. It's almost an obligatory shot. This one was taken last summer, absolutely bitten to death with the midges as we took it, but hopefully you'll see that the end result was a picture that I feel was worth suffering the midge attack for. So within Lightroom, once you've edited the picture and created what you want, you have something available to you called soft proofing. If you hit the S key, it opens up the soft proof, and it creates what it calls a proof, or you can create a proof copy. And you'll notice here that now underneath my histogram, it's got the word create proof copy over in the side here. Then it's got profile written underneath. And that profile gives me a list of all the available paper profiles that I've got available in my computer at the moment. And then underneath that, it's got something called intent. And intent is how the color gamut is adjusted in terms of what you're seeing on the screen. Now, there's two basic types of intent. One is perceptual and one is relative. Now, because there are less colors available on your printer than you're potentially seeing on your monitor, or at least the color range is less, that when you come to print it, the colors need to be compressed into the image. So perceptual will take the colors that are outside of the printer's color gamut and move them inside the printer's color gamut, but also adjust all the other colors relative to those colors within those. So if you like, it's a compression of the whole dynamic range to get the maximum dynamic range out of your printer. Relative will just take the nearest color match that it finds for any colors that are outside of the printer range and bring them inside the printer range. This means that if you have a color that's just outside the range, it may make it the same as a color inside the range, but not adjust the whole of the picture inside. So it's worth playing about with these to see how they affect the result of the image. But as a typical guideline, if you have a really vast dynamic range image, you're perhaps better off perceptually adjusting it. Whereas if you only perhaps have one or two colors that are outside of your printer's color gamut, then a relative adjustment might be a better choice. But having selected the different papers here, so if I select the paper that I actually printed it on, there's a button called Simulate Printer and Ink underneath. And if I toggle that, you will see, and hopefully you'll see, the altering on the screen to adjust for the print profile. So you can see there that I'm simulating between the two, the original, what was on the monitor, and the way that it would actually be viewed if I printed it on this particular paper, which is a matte paper, which is slightly off-white, which is Photospeed's Platinum Cotton 305. It gives the picture a little bit of a warmer color to it. So you can create a proof copy if you want, and subsequently edit that proof to create an image that you feel is perhaps more appropriate to what you wanted to get from your printer. But we'll come back to that in a moment. So I appear to have frozen. This is very frustrating, but Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, David, is that your screen is still nice and sharp anyway. So it just seems to be a problem with the webcam feed. So your sound is coming through perfect, and your screen is also coming through perfect as well. So
is the screen
I think while you're
updating
just
while I'm
sharing your screen,
okay?
yeah, 100%.
All right. All right. No, no problem. Well, let me know if it's not updating if you can. Okay.
I will do.
So so if we go into if we wanted to print this from Lightroom, we can go into the print module. Take out the printer. I can put the image up onto the screen, choose the size that I want to print it at. There are a number of various cutouts and standards of different print sizes that you can drop images into while you to create standard size images. But one very important thing here is that we only want to put the printer profile on an image once. So you need to turn off the printer profile management within the printer driver on your computer, so that Lightroom has control over the ICC profile. Otherwise, you're in danger of making the profile be applied twice. So if I click on the printer box here and I go to the properties section on the printer, there is an option for color intensity manual adjustment. I need to go into this and turn off, make sure that the color correction is turned off within the printer itself. Because if it isn't, then Lightroom will apply one ICC profile and the printer will apply another print profile, and you'll end up getting a print of not what you expected out on your screen. So having done that, I would then be in a position to actually send this image to the printer. Now, if I just run through a couple of options within Lightroom that you have, down here we have something called print resolution. We should aim at 300 ppi because that's what the best quality print would be. If it's bigger than that and the printer can't make it, let the printer handle it and it will deal with it. We have an option to add print sharpening, either low, standard or high on the output, and we can specify the media type that we are printing on, whether we're printing on a matte paper or a glossy paper. We can select the print profile that we want to print with. So I can select here my profile for the platinum cotton 305. We can select the perpetual and relative, and we can also adjust the brightness of the output of the printer. Now, the Lightroom print module has some advantages and some disadvantages, especially if you're a Canon print user. The advantage is it's very easy to build up an image of lots of different images. So if you wanted to make effectively a contact sheet, it's very easy to print that from within Lightroom. One of the disadvantages is that at this stage of Lightroom, it's not showing me the soft proof. It's showing me the original image that was there. And if I adjust the brightness of the image down here, it doesn't actually have any effect on the image on the screen. So With any of the Canon Pro printers, that's any of them with the word Pro written in them, Canon have a separate plugin called Print Studio Pro. And Print Studio Pro is a very useful tool. And from talking with Canon, it's really the tool you should be using to print with print on Canon printers, because it operates at a very low level. It actually goes into the Canon printer drivers at a much lower level than Lightroom does. So it gives you much more flexibility and capability to adjust the image and actually see what you're going to get. So if I activate the plugin, I can go to the File menu. I've got Plugin Extras, and I've got Canon Print Studio Pro. So what I'll do is, rather than launch it now, as I'll just pull up Print Studio Pro with an image that I've already selected, that is then, say, within Print Studio Pro. Now, within Print Studio Pro, I've got all of the profiles again available to me, so I can select whichever profile I want. And you can see I've got Enable Soft Proofing selected. So as I select different profiles, you will see that the image will actually change on the screen with the different profile selections. Okay, so you can actually see how it has altered on the image itself. You also, within the Canon tool, have the ability to adjust the brightness of the image actually on screen. So you can see it's the effect of adjusting the brightness immediately, and you can apply additional contrast at this stage. You even have curve-based tools and can alter the color balance at this stage. Now, this makes the Canon Print Studio Pro much more powerful than Lightroom at this stage of printing. So whilst Lightroom is a superb tool for getting the basic image adjusted, it's perhaps a little bit more engineered for making a digital image for digital display than making a digital image to print. Whereas Canon Print Studio Pro comes in very much more at the print level. There is also something down the bottom here called a pattern print. Now, if I had a monitor feed back again of me, I'll be able to show you, and perhaps I'll show you towards the end. But what a pattern print does is that it prints the same image on the screen at different brightnesses and different contrasts as if it was a contact sheet. So you can actually see within your contact, actually pick out the brightness and the contrast that you'd actually want to print the image at. Now, this is very useful if you're going to print multiple copies of the same image, perhaps if you're selling them, because you can get a very good idea straight off of what you actually want to get in terms of printing it. Print Studio Pro is also available from within Photoshop. You can install it as a plugin. If you download it from the Canon website, as you install it, it builds it in as a Lightroom as a plugin into Lightroom and as a plugin into Photoshop. The very latest versions of Photoshop, it doesn't seem to automatically go in as a plugin, and you need to make a few manual adjustments of copying files around to get it into the right place. So hopefully that gives you a good insight as to how I would print using Lightroom. I would edit the picture in Lightroom to get it to where I wanted it, and then I would come into Print Studio Pro and actually set the picture up to actually print. Just to give Paul a heads up, I'm going to drop out of this so that I can come back in as a live image.
That's brilliant, David. As we wait for David, lovely way of displaying how to actually print with Lightroom and Print Studio Pro. And here comes David back.
Of the
Hi,
live
David,
image.
you're back with us.
Yeah, just to show you that this is the same image printed as the through the Canon print match, so it is actually at different brightnesses and different contrasts throughout. So you can then choose the image that you actually want to print, and the resultant print is shown up there. Okay, so that's on the printing side from Lightroom. I also wanted to do a small little bit of a talk here with regarding to zines and what is a zine. A zine, very typically, is an A5 or similar little notebook which consists of a series of images. There are commercially available zines about. Cafe Royal Books have published over 500 zines over the years from all sorts of photographers. This one's by Homer Sykes. They're some big name photographers and some smaller name photographers, and they've produced a lot of black and white zines of images, often depicting a social moment. So this one's the Toxteth riots from 1981. There's another company called Another Place, which produces some very, very, very luxurious zines. These are, printed on nice paper, and they're a little documentary history about a certain event or a place or so on. A zine is just a collection of photographs when we talk about a photographic zine. Zines originated mainly in the 60s and 70s as underground magazines printed on low quality paper but distributed to a number of people, and they were a cheap way of people finding out information. Now we've got the internet. That's kind of disappeared, and now zines tend to be a short publication about an event, a place, but they're a very useful medium is the right word I'm looking for. Very useful medium to putting together a collection of photographs. Now, I'm a member of a couple of zine exchange groups where what we actually do is a group of us build a zine over a period of time, and then at a particular point we all print them and send them to each other, so that we actually got not only have you got a zine that you've produced yourself, but you've got a collection of zines from different people about all sorts of different subjects, and the subjects can be really varied. And I've got one here called 13 Seconds, which a guy produced, where he took 1 minute exposures, hence 13 images, each of 1 second, on his daily walk. So it's like ICM images from a daily walk. There was a zine I made on Dinorvik Quarry. So it's a booklet of 20 pages on Dinorvik Quarry. Now putting together a zine gives you a very different view of how you take your...
Lovely to hear about the zines there, and obviously the relationship of swapping zines over as well. Very exciting. And back with us, David.
Yeah. Putting together a zine gives you a very different take on how you actually go about your photography, because very often we are striving for that perfect image, and we go out on a photo shoot, and if we come back with one perfect image or one really good image, or we take one good image in a month, we're really happy. We're striving for something that's got technical perfection, whereas a zine is very much more a narrative. You're looking for a body of images that can be put together to make a body of work, and have some consistency and give you a narrative about it. There have been some very clever zines I've been sent. This one is called tin can selfies. And what the guy actually did was he turned tin cans into pinhole cameras, and then put the camera in front of a mirror with an object that was similar to what was within the can, and created an image. So for instance, we've got tomato soup here taken through the can. So there's a small hole in the outside of the can, and then he's put tomatoes in the image. He's got another one with spam in it. So he's got a series of images, you know, pot noodles, but they make a narrative, and they make an interesting series of images. So when you're out shooting for a zine, you might spend 5 or 6 trips. You might spend more. It might take you months to put together a zine. You might visit the same place more than once, but you're not looking necessarily for that absolutely perfect image. You're looking for good images, but you're looking for an image that will fit into the narrative of what you're trying to produce. So hold on, I just need to look at my notes. So I'm going to switch back to the screen here and talk a little bit about how I put together images for a zine. So if I go back to Lightroom here, what I typically do is I would build a collection from the various shoots that I've done for images that potentially could work in the zine. Now, these aren't necessarily the images that I'm going to use in the zine. I might not print all of these, and these were images that I picked for my Dinorvik Quarry zine. And you'll notice that some of the images are very similar. In fact, I don't think I used either of those in the final zine. But what you're looking to do again is you're looking, as you build up the zine, is to build up a narrative through the booklet. So not only do the images have to tell a story, if you like, through the zine, but the images that you put adjacent to each other should have some meaning as well. Now, in terms of getting a zine printed, it's not as expensive as you might think, and there are a couple of companies out there that are good for printing zines. One is a company called Docs Direct. Docs Direct is relatively low cost and is very cheap for black and white zines. And the other one is a company called Mixam. And you can see here that they have a booklet section, and you can get an instant quote. So if you say you wanted 10 copies of something, A5 size, you can change the paperweight, you can make it 20 sides. You can see that they're going to come in at £2.40 each. If you suddenly increase the number because you think you're going to distribute the zine to a number of friends, and you add another 10 copies, it's only an extra £2.50 to make them. Now Mixam also have a free printing service where you can print a test booklet. So you can print a 16-page zine as a test with Mixam to see how your zine might look. So I don't know if Paul can switch back to the other screen. A test zine here with Mixam. This test zine is called 330 Yards. While I was recovering from a broken ankle, that was about as far as I could go on a pair of crutches. So I decided I'd go and document outside my house within 330 yards and put it into a zine. Now this was printed as a test zine mainly to see how the color images would actually translate and come out within the zine itself, as opposed to putting together a story. Mixam's test facility only allows you to print in A4 or A5. I actually want to make this scene on a 20 by 20 image. So I've decided that I just printed that booklet on their free service, which cost me £1.80 in postage for 2 copies, just to make sure that the colours will come out. Now, one of the things to bear in mind here is that printing in colour with a printer requires images in CMYK format as opposed to RGB. Now, your computer uses RGB, and as we discussed earlier, Lightroom outputs images in RGB. Lightroom has no facilities to output images within CMYK. However, Photoshop does. So if you take your images into Photoshop, and this was one of the images that I'd used in the 330-yard zine, you've got a function image mode, and you've got the ability to select CMYK color, and it will tell you you're about to swap to a CMYK profile. And having done that, you can then save the image out individually as a TIFF file, which you can then import into your zine to be printed. Now, in terms of building up your zine, there are different ways of building a zine. If you want to build just a monochrome zine, you don't need anything fancy. You don't need to worry about CMYK because it's all in monochrome. So you can take the images actually as Lightroom has it. And my Dinorvik zine, which was a monochrome zine, I actually produced in Word and then generated a PDF copy, which I've now got on the screen here. And then I uploaded that to Docs Direct's print website, and Docs Direct printed it and sent me 10 copies back. One of the nice things about looking at your zine as a PDF is that you can actually see the pages as they would appear together. So I can step through the zine and see the story that I'm telling through the pages within the zine, and enable me to tie up the images. Some people find that it's easiest to print your images, whether you print them small on a contact sheet and actually cut them out, put them on a table, have a look at them, or you can build them up on a computer screen to actually achieve it. If you want to produce a color zine, you need to put together the images using a tool that will allow you to manipulate CMYK images. And for my color zine, I used Affinity's publisher tool, which is what we would have called in the old days a desktop publishing tool, and that allows me to build up the images that I want and have a look at them on the screen, and put them together, in this case with page numbers, etc. And it's shown me as well, it will show you as well the bleed lines and where your image is. So on this particular zine, I went for a full-size cover with only a small amount of writing on the inside, which, just as a test, was 330 yards in various different measurements. And then, as I said before, the test images themselves. So I then printed these pages out as individual pages, PDF pages, and I uploaded those to if I go to video. So they're all each as individual pages within Acrobat, and then I uploaded those pages to Mixam's website. The Docs Direct website, you can send a whole PDF to. Again, you can on the Mixam website. You could build a whole booklet up as a PDF and send it to it, but Mixam seems to like pages specified with particular page numbers, etc., then it will put them in the right place. So you'll see here I've actually labeled these page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, etc., to build up into the zine itself. So that should give you an idea, perhaps, of how to put a zine together, and the fact that a zine doesn't have to contain images necessarily that are absolutely, you know, your very best image. They just need to be images that tell a story of an event or a place, or something that means something to you. And then, having got it, it's a printed booklet which you can put on your shelf. You can give a copy to your friends, family, whatever, and it's a very low-cost way of self-publishing a booklet. So that's it as far as the main talk's going to go. I don't know if from Paul whether there were any questions raised that would be worth answering. I did the live feed back again. It seems to drop in and drop out. But I'm more than happy to field any questions that Paul has. I mean, in addition to what I said, I mean, I use the PhotoSpeed papers. I like them. They're a good range of papers. They're something that's stocked within Cambrian. Cambrian are offering a 20% off the PhotoSpeed papers for the virtual show week. Cambrian are also looking at taking on a range of printers in the near future, so you'll be able to you know, buy and see printers under demonstration at Cambrian. Cambrian also have the same printer that I have, a Pro 1000, and access to PhotoSpeed papers. So in theory, you know, your pictures can be test printed there, or you can have them printed using that service as opposed to using their normal, in inverted commas, printing service.
That's lovely, David. You do a better plug than me, and I work for Cambrian.
It's all the freebies of the cake.
That's what it is. Yeah. Once we've got the lemon cake up and running, we'll have to send you a truckload of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely love you for doing that. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, and also for struggling through the technical difficulties as well. So
I mean, it all appears to be working now. Typically.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and the thing, and it's all working again. So yeah, we had a quick comment about just basically recapping, I believe, probably on how you would select the best paper type for the prints that you would be doing, or is it just a case of trial and error?
There's a little bit of trial and error involved. People like PhotoSpeed and other printer manufacturers do sample paper packs, where for a lower cost you can perhaps get 8 different papers, a couple of sheets of each within a pack to allow you to test. It depends what you want. I like things typically on a fairly wide gamut paper, so I like fairly punchy prints on the whole. So you'll notice that, you know, if you read through the paper descriptions, something like PhotoSpeed's Platinum Baryta paper is described as a wide gamut paper. So it's very good for producing in monochrome images, especially deep blacks, okay. Where a lot of papers struggle if they don't have the wide color gamut is actually on a monochrome image, because you don't get the deep blacks out of the image that you might expect. I mean, I've got here, this is a picture of the Strid in the southern Yorkshire Dales on PhotoSpeed Platinum Baryta, but you can see down this side here, we've got some quite deep blacks going on in the image. And on the van image here, again, we have very deep blacks in the tire area, and there's still quite a lot of, you won't see it through the live feed, but there is still quite a lot of detail down at that level. So really, it's a bit of trial and error. I mean, I probably use 4 or 5 different types of paper, and I mean, one of them I use a fair bit, which is Photospeed's Matte Ultra, because it's a very cost-effective paper. It's not as thick as the signature papers, but it does give you a very good color image, and it's quite a low-cost paper. But you need to decide whether you want, a matte paper or a glossy paper, and then if you want that paper to add a bit of warmth to your image or not. It's very much a trial and error situation, but I'd recommend trying some sample paper packs. You can use the generic profiles to test them out and actually have a look. I mean, I have images that I've printed the same image on different paper stocks, and I've come to the conclusion that probably 80% of my images I will print on the platinum Barita paper, because not only does that give me the sort of image that I want, but it's also going to give me consistency for my images from print to print. So for that, one of the Strid, this was another project that I worked on. It hasn't made it to a zine yet, but I've printed a number of A3 prints from the Southern Yorkshire Dales, from different areas, limestone pavements, tree stumps, etc. I think it's more important perhaps to consider the image that you want to print, and to get the format of the image correct. And I'd be a large advocate of not cropping your image to suit an off-the-shelf frame. You're much better making the image that you want, printing the image you want, and then getting a framer or getting a frame insert made to suit the frame that you have, rather than saying, oh, I've got an 8x10 frame, I'm going to crop this image to make it 8x10.
No, that's brilliant.
Helps.
Yeah. Thank you, Bex, for resharing the question, because I think I did lose it in the thing there. So what was the
on the live comment?
Yeah, no, it's what was the second zine company that you recommended? I believe we did post them in the comments as well. So
right, one was Docs Direct, and Docs Direct are perhaps lower cost and very good for black and white. And the other one was a company called Mixam, Mixam. And the big advantage with Mixam is that Mixam allow you to do this test booklet, and this test booklet could be 16 pages long, so you can actually put together the best part of a decent zine, and have it printed, a couple of copies printed for a princely sum of £1.80. Now, you can't abuse the system because they'll only allow you to do it once every so many months, but it is a nice way of actually putting together a booklet and seeing how it would look at a very sensible price.
No, that's brilliant. And one more question on the zines, if I can find it. There we go. Yeah. So, what paperweight works best for a zine? Do they come in different paperweights?
Right. Oh, look, I'm no signal again.
we can still hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we certainly
you can hear me. Right, fine. I know what this one is. This one's we've abused the battery in the camera. Right, the paperweights on the zines. You want the zine to be able to open out flat. So if you go for a thick zine that is staple bound and is a thick zine that is staple bound, with a thick paper, it won't open very easily. Okay, but equally, you don't want something that's really flimsy. So I've tended to print things around about 170 grams, maybe 200 GSM in terms of printing. Now you can put a thicker cover on it, but again, I'd perhaps counsel against putting a thicker cover on it, because again, the thicker cover will stop it lying flat. Okay, now if you go beyond about 40 pages, you might want to consider a different binding on the zine rather than a staple. I mean, it's become much more of a booklet at this point. And I don't know if Paul can share the screen again. But you'll see here on Mixam's site here, you have a stapled edge, which is what I've used on the left-hand side. Then you have something called perfect bound. And this is where the images are almost glued into the end of the binder. Now, a perfect bound won't lie flat, but it might work better as a booklet once you get to about 40 pages.
Yeah.
But one thing you do need to consider when you get to a perfect bound type of booklet is don't necessarily put your images smack in the middle of the screen because of the page rather, because they won't be in the middle when you get the booklet made, because a chunk of the page is inside the binding. So you might want to offset the pages a little bit further to allow for the binding. Does that help?
No, it certainly does. And receiving thank you comments regarding all the questions that we have answered as well. So that's absolutely lovely, David. Thank you very much for doing that. I think that's a good place to have a natural stop here as well. So if there are any other questions, we will try and get to them in the comments afterwards. David, thank you ever so much for joining us today. And once again, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Thanks for bearing with us with the technical difficulties. Just proper trooping through it and carrying on like nothing's happening. So what an absolute star. So thank you very much for joining, David. It was good to see you. I'll just drop you back down into the green room and we'll have a little chat after
just one moment,
Paul.
Of course, I would like to plug. One thing I would like to plug is if you have enjoyed the presentation and would like to make a donation, my nominated charity is the Llanberis Mountain Rescue. They were entirely responsible for me getting off a mountain on the 10th of January this year when I broke my ankle. And I'd really appreciate if anyone did enjoy the talk, if they could make a small donation to them. I'm sure that Paul will put the link that I gave him in the comments.
It's in the description there. That's not a problem, and I will leave it there, just there. And obviously, you can follow the link there. We've also got a link going, which will be going to this charity as well. So please donate wherever we've sort of said otherwise as well. So that's not a problem. Thank you very much, David. I'll just quickly speak to you after the stream. What an amazing talk, and even with the technical difficulties, David just absolutely pounding through it. So really sort of good there for him to do that and sort of carry on. Thank you so much for that, David. Later on today, later on this evening, I will say, we are having Paul Sanders coming in to join us for a live talk, which we're really looking forward to as well. So can't wait to see Paul Sanders later on this evening. If you've been watching live, thank you very much for bearing with us. If you're watching the video afterwards, if you can please like, share, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can as well. All that you do to help us sort of like, share, subscribe, helps us to get the word out about our Cambrian show that we're doing. So big thank you for everyone that's been doing that so far. Until later on this evening, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.